Good Sunday morning to everybody out there. Meteorologist Zach Fradella with you. And I can't tell you the last time I was kind of live video on Facebook, that's for sure, or really any social media site. But I'm back. I'm going to be doing these video updates. Kind of makes it easier for me because I know I make posts. If you follow my page, I always make weather posts. But in this regard, I want to kind of get a little bit more in depth, show you what's going on, show you what could happen, because words can only go so far, that's for sure. So let's kind of get started and talk about what's going on in the tropics. We have a very active tropical Atlantic. Still have no named storms out there. We've already had the 8 named storm that came before the season, but we have two systems, Invest 92L and Invest 93L. Point out, number one point here, the system that is moving into the Gulf, I do not expect it, and really none of the models tearing this into a hurricane. So we're not worried about this exploding into a big storm. That's not our worry, but even weak storms have impacts, especially along the coast and especially in regards to rain. And it's been very wet. So that's something, where is this tropical moisture going to go? That's what we have to figure out. And that's really what I'm trying to talk about here, because it's all about impacts for you. You know, we could sit here and whether it has a name or not, it doesn't really matter. Look at August 2016. Last year, we had the significant flood in the Baton Rouge area, really across much of Louisiana, saw flooding with that storm. Was that a named storm? No, but it was tropical in nature. And whenever you have tropical moisture, that is where we worry, because that rain, I mean, you could talk easily a foot of rain in some instances, and somebody is going to get a lot of rain from this. That is a given fact. Here's the National Hurricane Center graphic that shows you what they're tracking and what could develop over the coming days. Invest 93L is the one near the Yucatan. It's got that X, it's red, and you see the general vicinity where they expect development to occur. It takes it into the Gulf. We know this is going to move into the Gulf. Once a system moves into the Gulf, what happens? Well, it becomes landlocked. So the moisture with this system is going to have to go somewhere. Could it go to Florida? Could it go to Texas? Could the landfall point be way away from where the worst of this weather goes? I think so. We're going to be talking about a sheared storm. This is not going to be a strong storm. It's going to have a tough environment to develop in. So this could easily be one of those storms where it might make landfall in Texas, but the worst of the weather's in Louisiana. Or it might make landfall in Louisiana, but the worst of the weather's in Florida. That is certainly possible, and that's definitely one of the possibilities as far as these computer models, and I'm going to show them to you in just one second. But let's move on to the satellite image, and I'm going to take me off of the screen real quick for you. Let me get the main screen here, and I'm going to take me off because I want to show you where Invest 92L is. That's the one way out into the Atlantic right now, and it's behind me. Now, it's no longer behind me. You can see that system. It's approaching the Caribbean, and I just want to talk about it for a second. 92L, this is 92L right here, okay? 92L is located right here, all right? It is going to continue to move and probably maybe possibly make some kind of landfall in South America maybe, but for the most part, we are going to ignore this because wind shear is going to blow this thing apart once it moves into the Caribbean. So anything develops, it's just going to take a name away, and then it'll be long gone as we go into the next few days. Say once we get into the end of the week, this will be a thing of the past. Bigger storm, clearly you see what's going on. We have a huge mass of convection. It's basically thunderstorms, heavy squalls, you know, tropical rainfall. And looking at it, it's big, and it looks like it's trying to have a little circulation right here. The difference is that's not exactly where we're plotting the circulation from the National Hurricane Center. Let's throw the spaghetti plots on here and show you what I'm talking about. Notice where they put the center, or when we talk about storms become Invest first, when we hear the name Invest, what happens is the National Hurricane Center starts to run computer models on a plot. You can see they're plotting it right there. Remember all the thunderstorms and everything? They were all over here. It's indicative of that wind shear, and it's also something I want to draw attention to as well, because when you have this wind shear, the surface low, or the areal pressure at the surface of the ocean, could be, say, let's pretend I'm drawing X, it could be right here. But when these storms are sheared, which is probably going to be the case with the storm once it moves into the Gulf, all of the worst of the weather is over here. So if this storm goes to Texas, guess who's going to get the worst of the weather? Right here. If this storm aims right at, say, Louisiana, at the coast of Louisiana, where's the worst of the weather going to be? Probably the Florida Panhandle. That is what I want you to start thinking about. Don't worry about what's going to happen as far as a track. I know a lot of people can say, oh, it's going to Texas. Well, that's fine, but when you have these weak storms like this, Going to Texas may not all be that good of a thing for Louisiana, because that means that tropical moisture is going to surge right into the state of Louisiana as it does so. We're going to give you a close-up look at this and just kind of draw out a few features for you. All right. The surface low that the National Hurricane Center is plotting is about right there. You really can't see much turning, but there's a little bit of spin that's going on right there. This spin right here seems to be in the mid-levels, but you see where all the convection is. You see this big mass of storms? So when we start tracking this, and I'm going to show you in 1 second, when we start tracking this on the computer models, wherever it may go, right of the storm, the right side of the storm is where we need to figure out where that's going to go, and that's where all that heavy rain is going to start to move into, possibly Florida, possibly Louisiana. If this thing goes to, say, Mexico, Texas, Louisiana might get the worst of it. Here's why I don't expect it to blow up into a hurricane. This is the water vapor imagery that shows you wind shear. We talk about wind shear. That's the strong winds up in the atmosphere. We talk about them a lot during hurricane season, because hurricanes, any type of tropical system, any developing tropical system, hates wind shear. It's sort of like an upper level low here. Look at the dry air. Look at this wind blowing through here. And you can see how, you see these thunderstorms as they blow up, it's kind of hard to see, but you can almost see how the clouds just keep shooting off this way. That's going to continue to happen even as this heads into the Gulf over the coming days. This low pressure right here in the upper levels is going to start to kind of dive down here. That's going to allow all this moisture to come up, and then where does it go? Okay. The past few days, I'm going to put these track models back on it. The past few days, they've been, we've been saying, well, there's two models fight. One sort of is called the European. You've probably heard of it. It goes like this, and then it goes back into Texas. The GFS does the exact opposite. It goes like this and then goes like that. What is that? Well, it's bad if it goes here for Louisiana. If it goes here for Louisiana, that puts us right in all of that moisture. If it goes here for Louisiana, we have a nice sunny week probably ahead. Which way is it going to go? Well, I can tell you, and I'm going to show you, the latest GFS model just came out. So which one of those models is going to cave? Because really, you can put all the models in the world on here. There's really a couple that you really want to pay attention to. That's why these spaghetti plots, they're not exactly, the most truthful things, because the more models you look at, the more confusing it gets. This is the latest GFS. Remember, it's the one that's been going into the Florida Panhandle, and this is from Tropical Tidbits. If you ever want to look at these computer models, you can go to tropicaltidbits.com, and they have all of different computer models for you. But I'm going to put this in motion. This is going into tomorrow. There's a system developing. Still not totally probably a named storm at that point, but getting close. The National Hurricane Center might fly out this afternoon with the hurricane hunters, but I don't know if it's totally, say, organized just yet. Once we go into, say, late tomorrow into Tuesday, it's got an area low pressure now. There's a lot of heavy rain, but look where the heavy rain is. It's on the east side. There's really not much on the left side. Remember how this model was taken into the Florida Panhandle. What does it do now? And this is kind of what I've been leaning towards, that it's going to go north. It's going to slow down big time once it gets near, say, the mouth of the river or south of the mouth of the Mississippi River. And then what? Look at all the heavy rain that's falling over the Florida Panhandle. This is what I'm talking about as far as the right side of the storm. New Orleans points, say, west to Lake Charles, Texas. All is dry with this, say, scenario playing out like this. Okay? And give me 1 second. I'm going to pull me back up so you can see. I hate to keep me off of here for so long just so you can see what I'm talking about. But then, now this is different. Remember how I said it was going to the Florida Panhandle? That's what the GFS has been doing. Well, now it takes a left turn. The ridge of high pressure builds back in. So we have a big ridge to the north of the storm. We have a trough. It drew it north. That trough came down, but it started to move out. And then the ridge of high pressure over here built back in. What does that do? Well, it's gotten caught under that, so where is it going to have to go? It's going to probably go west. That is what the European's been showing. It's just been doing it a lot farther south down here, which is still plausible. But either way, if this thing ends up going west, which I'm going to keep pushing this into motion and show you what eventually it does. If this thing keeps going west, all of that heavy rain, notice where it's falling, on the west or the east side of the storm. So a track towards Texas is not good for Louisiana. Will that happen? Considering the GFS just jumped from going just to the Florida Panhandle, now going west more so, it kind of brings it straight to the southeast Louisiana. Again, if that was the case, Lake Charles, nothing. Southeast Louisiana, portion of the Mississippi, this would probably be some very heavy rainfall. And that's kind of the question. What ends up happening? A lot of, unanswered questions, but the big story is The big thing I want you to know is this is not going to blow up into a hurricane. Chances are this is probably not going to even become a strong tropical storm. The rainfall is what we're worried about, and that is what we're trying to figure out. Where is it going to go over the coming days? Does that rainfall, push into Florida mainly? Wherever that track is, we want it to be on our right side. We want it to be east of us because that means all the worst of the weather is going to be that way. So if we do get a developing storm, say the next day or so it gets named Brett, we're going to get a track from the Hurricane Center. Don't focus on the center because it's probably going to be a lot weaker of a storm. This is not going to be, wherever the center goes, that's the eye. Not exactly. This is going to be a fairly weak storm, so we want to avoid that right side because that could be some very heavy rainfall. And that's kind of the big question mark is where is that surge of moisture going to go? And we're only going to figure that out over the coming days. Right now, generally, most of the computer models are bringing that surface low up north into the Gulf and then someplace south of the mouth of the river, south of Mississippi, Alabama. Does it go back west and move towards Texas at that point? It very well could do that, and then that would put all of that heavy rain over Florida, and then eventually just drag it along the Gulf Coast westward, back into Mississippi, back into Louisiana, and that would be problematic for us. But again, just wanted to update things. You can see how it's still a very complex situation, but there's no cause for concern. We just need to watch this. We go through heavy rain events multiple times a year, and that's really what this is going to be, is a very heavy rain event for somebody from Florida to Texas to Mexico. Somebody's going to get some heavy rainfall. For the wind, I'm really not too concerned. Now, like I said, anything can happen, but none of the models turn this into a big windstorm. None of the models really turn it even near hurricane strength. But we'll be watching it the next few days. Again, I'm meteorologist Zach Fridello. Thanks for tuning in. And I'll be doing these video updates as needed because it allows me to be a little bit more specific. And I could show you a few things instead of just always writing about them. Again, always follow my page, Meteorologist Zach Fridello. I'm on all of them, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, a little bit of everything. Y'all have a good Father's Day. Again, happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. And I'll be back with more as we kind of progress into the new work week. Have a good day.